Hello, Crystal Palace. Welcome to the Upper Norwood Library Hub Library Live Lunch. This is intended as a way of keeping the community connected, sharing positive and useful information, and a way of finding out about aspects of the community in greater depth, which is what we're doing today. So my guest today is Tom Chance, who is Secretary of the Board of the Crystal Palace Community Land Trust. Tom, thank you so much for joining us. It's great to have you. Tell us a bit about the Crystal Palace Community Land Trust. What is it?
Sure. Thanks for having me along. And hello, everyone. This is a bit strange because I've been self-isolating with my wife since this started. We just had a baby as well, so I'm a bit stuck in my own head, my own little world, and I've barely been outside the house talking to anyone.
Well, now you're talking to the entirety of Crystal
Hello,
Palace.
Crystal Palace. Yes, hello, Crystal Palace. So the Community Land Trust it was set up just this time last year as a way of taking land and buildings into community ownership and then putting them to use for the benefit of the local community. It is an organisation that is owned and controlled by people who live and work here. It's based on a structure where it has a membership, and that membership all jointly own it, and anyone can join it if you live or work in the area for £1, and then you can vote on, get to vote on who's on the board and sort of democratically control the thing, and it can do anything really. But our main objective is to try and, like I say, take on land and buildings in an area that is becoming increasingly expensive, and with lots of issues we've had in recent years, which basically come down to who's the owner of the building, who's the landlord, who owns that, who owns the housing, who owns the shops, what have you, and we want more of them to be owned by the community.
And there's been issues on the high street, haven't there, as well, with rents going up and things, people being priced out. So
yeah, and I know some of the shopkeepers, some of it's also just been lack of turnover midweek, and so obviously you can't kind of solve everything. But if you say, well, we need to, if you own a shop as a community, you need to be able to pay your bills and your mortgage and what have you, but you don't profiteer, and you try to work with local businesses to support them, very much in the way that, like, the library itself is a hub for loads of community activity. We would like, as a landlord, as an owner, a steward of land in the area, to be a hub for the community.
Cool. Well, it's a good area to be doing it in, isn't it? It's very community orientated around here, so I'm excited by this.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about how it operates.
Okay, well, so you mentioned I'm the secretary to the board, so in some ways we're quite conventional. We're a registered society, so we're regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. We have a board of directors who are responsible for running the thing, and we have an annual general meeting at which that board is elected. So in a lot of ways, it's fairly typical sort of community company. We're basically we're like a special kind of company, except that we have, as I said, this membership, and the members own it rather than shareholders or the investors or the founders or anything like that. So we currently have about 70 members, I think, who own. So we will sort of jointly own it and have joint control over it. The board is there just to meet sort of 4 or 5 times a year to oversee the whole thing, but then the board delegates kind of detail work to project groups or project boards that then take forward projects. So at the moment we have one project board, which is for a project on the lawns, which we can talk about a bit later. And that's chaired by a member of the overall board, but then they bring in other kind of volunteers, and other people come in and help out. And what we want to do is, within this kind of formal structure, create a lot of opportunity for other people to get involved and volunteer without having to take on the full responsibilities of becoming the director of the company. So we have other people who just help out with individual bits of, they either come regularly to meetings or they just do the odd job for us. There's somebody who just does our newsletter. And we're kind of open to it changing. It's just at the moment, it's that those of us who happen to have stepped up and get the thing started, but we're really happy for more people to get involved and suggest other ways in which we can organise things.
Cool.
We're also connected to, we came out of the Crystal Palace Transition Town. So we sort of maintain a link with the Transition Town, both with our ethos and the steering group for the Transition Town, and kind of keeping, so we've been down the market and things like that.
You've mentioned, you've possibly sort of covered most of the ethos in terms of the community aims. Is there anything else kind of about the ethos that you want to add?
Yeah, so the main part of it, as you say, is the community side of it. the sort of belief in the power that if the community owned assets in the area, we could do more to sustain the community and help it to thrive. And actually, our primary focus is really, although we've mentioned shops, lots of people think about what's been happening around the Triangle, our primary focus is really at the moment is housing. And just the cost of renting in the area is so high. There's such a lack of affordable housing. House prices are extremely high as well. So if people wanted to be able to buy their first flat or home, it's very expensive to be able to do that. So that's kind of that's been our primary focus really, because so we did a bit of work with the All Saints Primary School. We got the kids there in year 6. They did a logo competition for us, which is wonderful. They did such cute little designs. They're wonderful. And I was talking to the teachers and the head teacher there about like kids having to leave the school because their parents are leaving the area because they can't afford to stay here anymore. So that's a big part of the community sustainability is people actually being able to live here in the first place. So that's kind of the main part of our ethos. But we're also, because we've come through the transition town, we want to have a sustainable community in the fullest sense. So we're also very concerned about environmental sustainability, trying to make sure that we are reducing our carbon emissions, that we are supporting natural habitats and wildlife in the area. And so if we build houses, we want to build houses that are as environmentally friendly as possible, and sort of show that this is the future. This is how we can be building in homes and also refurbishing existing buildings in the area. So kind of we legally have a duty to the economic, social, and environmental well-being of the community, and then that's very much expressed in how we operate and how we try to run what we're doing.
Fantastic. That's really cool. Just before, I want to know about the current project. Just before we do that, I want to just say hello to everybody who's watching. And if you have any questions for Tom along the way, please do put them in the Facebook feed or the YouTube feed or whatever medium you're watching this on. And we will try and answer them as we go along. So tell us about the current project.
Well, it's actually why we got started in the first place. This opportunity came along. So Croydon Council, in fact, I do this kind of stuff in my day job anyway, and I've been talking to the council for quite some time about, along with the councils up and down the country, about trying to support more community-led housing. And Croydon decided that they were going to put up to 5 pieces of land across the borough out for community groups to bid on and to bring forward a project. And there were sites that they would normally have developed with brick by brick, and they decided instead to do it in partnership with the community, or in fact, basically let the community lead the process. And the first site they put out is in Crystal Palace. So it's on a road called the Lawns, which is just alongside the park called the Lawns. Just if you know, on sort of to the south, on the south side of Crystal Palace, there's a big Harvester pub on Beulah Hill, and you kind of go down Spa Hill, part near the allotments, and there's a road there called the Lawns. So it's down there. Cool. And it's a awkward sloping site with slopes in 2 directions and is small. It's not like the world's easiest site to try and develop housing on, but basically the council put it out and said, who'd like to do something with this? A few different community organisations put in bids, and we put one in ourselves. So this was like this time last year, pretty much. We had our first meetings through the transition town to talk about, do we want to do this? We managed to pull together a group with 2 local architects, a planning consultant, a passive house specialist who's kind of like environmental housing design, and myself and some other people with other kind of skills who had interest. And we put together a bid. We put it in July, and then in August we got told we won.
It's amazing.
So we're hoping to develop some housing on this site. Maybe sort of 6 or 7 homes in total. We're not quite sure yet. We're still at very early stages, and since last summer we've spent a long time getting ourselves legally incorporated, getting lawyers involved. We've selected an architect. We're negotiating with the council about the lease and all sorts of really exciting stuff that, we're kind of boring stuff we're doing behind the scene. And we had our AGM in October, and we had planned this spring to now start doing the design work and involving the community and doing a kind of really deep involvement for the community and what we're actually going to build there. Because at the minute we've got no great preconceptions. But of course, with lockdown, we've not been able to do that. So we're doing a bit more kind of exciting lease negotiation and contracting and other stuff, and doing some more investigations on the site itself.
And you mentioned brick by brick as that was part of the requirement for winning the bid, wasn't it? That you actually work with them. They're the in-house contractors for Croydon Council, I think.
Yeah, so Croydon set up brick by brick to build housing on its own land and then to make money for the council. And they've done a few developments already around Crystal Palace, and we know that there's quite a bit of controversy around some of them. With our scheme, basically, they're working for us, so it's our project. We'll decide what we're going to try to build there and what it looks like and all the rest. And we've already been talking to, we've going around door knocking on the residents in the local area, people neighbouring the site, getting their views, and we're going to really involve them in the design process for these schemes. So we won't kind of come along to consult on something we've come up with ourselves. We'll be doing it with the local community, and we are ourselves obviously part of the local community. And then Brick by Brick are basically project managing it for us and providing us with various contractors and surveyors and people on really good rates, and then giving us all the benefit of their experience of having developed in Croydon. So we hope it's going to be a really positive partnership, and they're going to give us a lot of skill and expertise. But unlike other schemes, it's our scheme. It's not the council's, or it's not Brick by Bricks. So they'll work with us up to getting planning permission, assuming we get planning permission, and then it's up to us whether we want to continue to work with them through to actually building out the homes.
Okay, cool. We seem to have acquired some more people watching, so just to say hello again to everybody who's watching, and if you've got any questions for Tom, please give us a shout on the Facebook feed or the YouTube feed, whatever you're watching on, and we'll try and answer those as we go. So you mentioned about getting the community involved, which obviously has been a little delayed because of the current situation, but how are you planning to do that?
What we want to do is, first of all, we will do all the usual forms of consultation so that anybody can, feedback on our plans, and also we'll go through the planning process. So there'll be all those opportunities for people to feed in comments. But we wanted to get some local residents much more deeply involved in the design process than that. We can't kind of have hundreds of people doing that because it'd be a bit chaotic and it'd become too expensive for us, and the architects, they're going to charge us for their involvement with this process. So what we're doing, having talked to other community land trusts in other parts of the country and other parts of London, is we're going to pull together a group which we're called, and we need a better name for it, but it's something like the Resident Design Group. And it's going to be a group of people, some of whom live on the lawns or immediately next to the site and will be very impacted by it. And also some other people from the wider Crystal Palace community, maybe people who themselves feel like they have a housing need. They were interested in affordable housing. Maybe some people from the transition town. One of my fellow directors, Janet, went and talked to Crystal Palace freelancers last year about it, and they were quite interested in it. So just to get a different group of people, maybe a dozen people, bring them together. We're going to give them a bit of training first in things like development viability, so you kind of understand that you can't always do everything. This thing has to stack up financially. But then we're going to work with them and the architects, doing a few workshops to go through from basics like what's called massing, kind of how big buildings might be and where they might be, right down to the sort of final design details. And they'll work with us to design the scheme. And then at some point through that, we'll have a wider public consultation for kind of wider input into it. So what we'll be doing whenever we have a bit more clarity about lockdown ending is then recruiting that group. And if people are interested, then get in touch. And we'll obviously be inviting all of our members to be involved in it, but we've been kind of, put the word out a bit more widely, and we're going to go and door knock the street again and so on to try to recruit a kind of decent, reasonably representative group of people, so they don't, it's not all just 10 people from who watch Up and Norwood Library Live and no one else, or 10 planning consultants or what have you.
Oh, it sounds really interesting to be involved in. That sounds great. Just to recap, actually, something you said at the beginning. So you can become a member of the Community Land Trust really, really easily, and it's just £1, I think you said, to be a member, and then you have input.
So anyone who lives or works in the Crystal Palace area, which we've defined quite generously, can join. Then you become a joint owner, and you can get more involved, and you can vote at our AGM and various other things like that. You can do it when we do it with a stall. We'll just take £1 coin. You can also join online, and there's a processing fee. I spent ages trying to find, is there somewhere that doesn't charge what seems like if you're buying something for £100 and you get charged 50p on top, you think, never mind. Basically, you have to pay £1.23, I think it is. So if you can afford the extra 23p,
Excellent.
You can join on our website. It's crystalpalacect.org. You will then get our regular newsletter, and you can, you have the right to vote at our meetings and get more involved in what we're doing and to see the minutes of our board meetings and all that kind of stuff. And we put all of our stuff on the website, so you can see the minutes of our meetings. We're trying to be quite transparent with how we run the thing.
And if people want to get in touch about the group that you're wanting to put together, or about being involved, volunteering, anything like that, they can do it through the website, presumably, as well. Is that the best way?
Yeah, so crystalpalacect.org, or you can email us, crystalpalacect@gmail.com, or you might find us on Twitter. We'd love at some point to be on other things like Facebook and Instagram, but we don't at the moment have anyone who actually uses them. So what we're really keen for is both people, if people are interested in being involved in the design process, but then also people who are interested in helping in other ways, like doing kind of publicity and communications, and also people to help us put this engagement process together, because it's going to take quite a bit of, it's going to take some work from our side to recruit that group, make sure we've got their contact details, staying in touch with them, booking rooms, all that kind of stuff. We're doing that, it's all being done by us as volunteers, and we'd really love more people to be involved. So you don't need to be an architect or a planning consultant to get involved with this. You can be just have other sorts of skills. I was going to say unskilled, but other skills.
Yeah.
And time and enthusiasm, and as we know, Crystal Palace has bags of it.
Yeah, absolutely, and lots of opportunities for doing sort of anything from quite small amounts of time, I guess, to quite big, depending on what people want and have to spare.
And it's really interesting. I mean, I kind of work in this area anyway, but it's a really interesting learning process, because then you'll be seeing how do you put together a housing development, and how do you do something that's more affordable than open market, and how affordable can we make it? It's going to be really challenging. It's quite unlikely we'll manage to make it social housing, because we wouldn't be able to get, it's just too complicated to site, it's too expensive. But so how affordable can you make it? How green can you make it? If you're kind of interested in these things, it's a really interesting project to be involved in.
And I guess seeing where the compromises have to happen in order to make all those different things possible.
Yeah. And how much grant we can get to make, like fundraising as well. The more grant we can bring in, and obviously the more we can achieve with it.
Cool. Where is the money likely to come from?
Well, at some point, we're going to take out a loan for best part of 1.5 million. So that'll be interesting. But at the moment, we're getting funding through. We've had a little bit from our councillors just to help us get started, and then we've had some through something called the Community Housing Fund, which is set up by the GLA and is run by a kind of another organisation they've got running, supporting groups right across London. So we've had about £26,000 of funding so far. We're just waiting to sign off on another 75.
Brilliant.
To take us through the design process, and then we'll be looking for further grant funding from the GLA for the affordable housing part of it to help make it affordable. And we were hoping, other funding sources as well, and see if we can get the council to put in some additional money. But obviously, they're going to be in pretty difficult circumstances now because of the coronavirus. I don't know. We'll see. The other thing we might do is a community share issue, which lots of other CLTs have done. So people could invest directly in the project, and then we would offer, sort of 1 to 3% return on their investment, and that would get a lot of money out of the community at a slightly cheaper rate than we'll get from the bank. So kind of all these options are available, and we're doing something like, it might sound a bit crazy at first to do this, but this is something that communities up and down the country are doing, and it's really, really wonderful examples. In fact, the Library of Things recently wrote something about other kind of examples of community asset ownership, and one in Liverpool called Home Baked, where they own a bakery right opposite Anfield Stadium. They've done up the flat above it. They're now just agreed to take on the whole terrace of houses, and they're doing up some empty homes. It's just
amazing,
and they raise finance the same way we're going to raise it.
Fab. Well, it's really good to see that examples of where it's worked really well already, I guess. Kind of draw information from them. It's cool.
Yeah.
Amazing. I guess we're sort of getting towards the end of our time, so I'd love to know what the kind of, if there's any vision for the future where it might go. This is obviously the first project so far, and the situation is somewhat uncertain at the moment, but do you guys have a sort of vision of where you'd like it to go?
I think we all probably individually do, because we've been so focused on this first project. We've not really had a proper discussion as either the board or the kind of wider membership about where we'd like it to go. But we've chatted about it a bit, and my joke is basically that, well, it's not really a joke. I'm serious. I want the CLT to buy out most of the triangle. That's my ambition.
Cool. I support that.
I mean, there are so like in America, Bernie Sanders, the guy who's running for the Democratic candidacy. When he was the mayor of Burlington, that's where he started his career. There's a big CLT there that owns 3,000 homes and loads of commercial units. So it doesn't, we're starting really small, but it could grow and grow and grow and be quite a significant stakeholder in the area. And I think that'd be really great. And it could be something that kind of sits behind and sustains lots of other community activity, lots of good local businesses, housing, whatever it is. The thing is, the vision is really there for the members to determine. That's why people join. So if you've got an interest in this and you think there's ways in which we could be doing this, what's called asset-based development, differently for the community, then just join and get involved, and we'll see where we go. Maybe in a few years' time, hopefully we'll have our first homes completed, and we'll maybe have 6 other projects on the go. Who knows?
Amazing. And you're saying you're going to have a different committee for each project, so people can get involved with like a project, I guess.
Yeah, so it's sort of a structure that means that people can kind of get involved just at the level of a project without having to worry about the whole organisation, and then the board overall kind of oversees all that. I think that we're not going to start 100 projects all at once and the whole thing collapse. We've got to make sure we can govern this, and if we're going to take out $1.5 million loan, we've got to make sure we can repay it and all the rest. But we kind of want to create a structure where, as we go along, more projects could be created. And they could be really ambitious, like let's develop 10 homes, or it could just be, I don't know, like there's a shop unit that's being sold and we figure out there's a business case that can be made for buying it and then letting it out, or something a bit more low key even. Like I was thinking all the different transition town gardens that have been done, and then we've had conversations with a couple of landowners locally who have an interest in doing some development, and we're wondering, in a way we could be helping them, we could be facilitating them, because we'd have an experienced team that knows how to do property development ethically and for the good of the community, so we could work with them. So I don't know.
It's really exciting. You've definitely got one new member in me today, so I will go and sign up later after this. That sounds really awesome. Thanks so much for coming and having a chat with us about it. Really cool. I can't wait to see where it goes. I'm going to sideline now into the rest of the Library Hub live streaming program very, very quickly. So as you guys watching probably know, we have a really big live streaming program. Basically everything we could possibly put online straight away of our normal events we did, and other things have been added in the process as well. So actually, speaking of gardens and things, what we have this afternoon is Tanya with her edible garden, edible kitchen, which is a bit of a mixture of gardening and cooking. And all very, from what I've seen, it's lovely, very, very sensible, kind of down to earth stuff that you can see yourself achieving, even if you don't normally do much in the garden or in the kitchen. We've also got morning meditation, we've got singing classes, we've got children's stories, live music, all sorts of things. So please do check out our live streaming program. And tomorrow on the Library Live Lunch, I'm chatting to the manager and head chef of the Sparrowhawk, who've recently started doing takeaway roasts and almost ready meals, which is freshly prepared, and things like bread and flour and eggs and all sorts of things. So tune in tomorrow to find out more about that. That's it from me for today. Tom, thank you so much for coming and having a chat. It was really fascinating, and I am going to go away and sign up right now to the Community Land Trust.
Great, thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Thank you very much. Enjoy the sunshine, everybody, and we'll hopefully see you tomorrow. Take care.